Okay, and part of the assignment for Inventor, that third set of drawings, this is the first drawing. It's called Bearing Figure 6.59. And when you're working on creating this part, there are a few specific features, and also there's some dimensions that I want to talk about when you need to understand the concept of dimensioning and reading these dimensions and why and how these are set up. So what we're going to do is first we're going to talk about some of the information given in this part, and then we're going to take it into Inventor and we'll start drawing it. Some of the first things to take note of. Here you actually see tolerances for the first time, 1.625, 1.621, and then the term bore. Bore is the operation that will be used to create this feature, the hole here. Boring is a machining operation to find a particular size, generally after drilling, by sending a tool in to enlarge the inner hole to a particular tolerance. The tolerance, 1.625, 1.621, this is the size, the largest size and the smallest size that this hole can be made to. So anything in between, 1.624, 23, 22, all of those would be acceptable, as would 25 and 21. So when making this part, we're going to just select one of these tolerances to actually build to, and I would just select 1.625 to move forward. As we move around, there's a drilling operation, which means that this 1/4-inch hole will be drilled through the side of this rounded feature. We'll talk about how to get a tangent face with a work plane to create that feature a little bit later. As we come back around here, it says drill 2 holes, 9/16. So we have one hole located on one side, and then on the other side that same hole at 9/16. The outside radius for the outside of the part here, this arc, is that 11/16 radius, which should be fairly familiar to everybody on how to read. So let's go ahead. We're going to start building this part now. At distance from one side to the other, working with the center holes from one side to the other is where I would begin. In fact, I would talk about first, let's think about it. I'm going to start building this part from this bottom mounting flange. This bottom section would be considered a mounting flange. And I'm going to build that entire flange first. And then I'm going to put another sketch on the top of that flange to create this boss. This is called a boss that is coming off of the mounting flange. And then I would then start working with the hole feature to create holes. So we'll start with this bottom piece first, and I'm going to go ahead and space out the location for each of these center holes. So it's going to be 3 3/4. Now I'll then go ahead and start with the then 11/16 radius circles on each side. So I'm going to go into Inventor. I'm going to make sure I have a brand new part file open. This is an English part file, or inches. And I'll grab my 2D sketch tool, come down, grab 2D sketch, and I'm going to place that on one of my planes. Go ahead and grab my line tool and draw my 3.75 inch line, and that locates at the end of that line. That's going to be the location points for my radius circles. So I'll grab my radius or my circle tool next. I'm going to select one end, and I can see that my circle tool is set up to work with diameter right now. So I'll actually right click, slide down to the radius selection here on the right click menu and select it, and now I'm in radius. So I'm actually going to go ahead and type in 11/16 for 11/16 and hit enter. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side by selecting and pulling out, and it holds that radius dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 11/16 for 11/16. Okay, after I've done that and set up the outside, what is going to be my outside arc piece, then I'm going to go back. I just want to check to see what is the overall size of this other part. Now, this arc at this point is going to be in line with this top boss. So I look at this and say the diameter is what I need to deal with. And I'm going to find that the diameter is going to be 2.5. That's from one side of the boss to the other. And we're going to then locate that at the center point of the line that I drew before, that 3 3/4 line. So I'll grab my circle tool again, grab my circle tool. I need to find center. Center will be located by a green dot. I'm going to click. Now change back to diameter with a right click to diameter, pull out, and now 2.5 is that 2.5 inch dimension. So now I just need to start setting up lines. So I grab my line tool because I just need to have some tangent lines moving around this particular drawing. So to do so, I'm going to then utilize the constraint tools very specifically, and I'm just going to rough in a line very quickly. hit escape, the end of the command, grab my constraint tool, and I'm going to select the line and the circle. And it actually will snap that to be a tangent constraint. I'll grab this line and then again this circle, and it snaps to be a tangent constraint. So that line is now in a tangent relationship. I'll just now do this again around the entire part. I will first go ahead and rough in some lines. So I have them, and I'm going to use that same constraint tool again to set up the relationship. And I'm doing this very specifically because I do not want to have additional constraints placed without my knowledge. I'm going to grab the constraint tool, grab my line and the circle, and then the line and the circle. As I'm doing this, I'm also making sure that these circles aren't moving to the line. And by having a line going from one point to the other and also being set up on the center of the sketch, what that does is it keeps the circles from moving and keeps them locked onto the sketch geometry. So as I keep working my way around, setting up these constraints, they're all set up. Now I can go ahead and I just need to do some trimming. So I'll grab my trim tool off of my modify bar, and I'm going to get rid of that little extension line, little niblet line running across there, and I'll work my way around. Now here, I'm actually not even touching the geometry with my tangent line. The line is tangent, but it has not been extended. So I'll have to go and grab my extend tool instead of my trim tool, and then select the line. When I mouse over it, there's a large or a very thick black line that extends to the circle, and that's telling me what it would do if I select it. So I want that. So I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to go back to my trim tool, and I can keep working. Whoop, actually I got to extend this one too. So we'll extend that one, go back to trim, because I think I got some more trimming. There's some more trimming here, some trimming here, and a trim here. Oh, one more. All right, so now I think my trimming is taken care of. Now I just need to trim out the inside of these arcs here, the insides of the circles. And I'll go ahead and start selecting and start selecting and selecting and selecting and then selecting here. And I'm trimming out the portions of the sketch that I don't need. Now, you just saw that entire sketch turn green after I started trimming. It's because the dimension that was driving this particular circle was also then deleted. Now that sketch geometry is no longer being constrained by dimension. So now I have the layout that I want, that I'm going to extrude. So I can go ahead now and hit Finish Sketch. And I can grab my extrude tool, and I should be able to extrude this center portion. And I'm going to go back to my drawing here and take a look at what I need to extrude this for. So looking at the dimension here on the side, it's 9/16. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude this bottom mounting flange to 9/16. So set up 9/16 and hit enter. All right, now I'm ready to put the top boss on this. Once you have this bottom piece set up for the mounting flange, you can start thinking about building the boss off of the top of this mounting flange surface. I'm going to go ahead and make my second sketch and then create a 2.5 inch diameter circle on top. So I grab my 2D sketch tool. I select the top of the mounting flange. I'm going to grab my circle tool, and I'm going to have to mouse around the outside of this arc first to get that center point to show up. When the center point shows up, I can now click and pull. I'm in diameter, so I'll type in 2.5, and that should line up perfectly with that outside arc, which it does. I can hit Finish Sketch, and now I can extrude this particular feature the rest of the way out. So the extrusion height coming off this is going to be 3/4 of an inch or 0.75. Now that I have that boss taken care of, I can then go ahead and I want to start looking at putting the holes into this part. Going back to this feature, I'm going to go ahead and deal with the inside circle here first, and I'll go ahead and use my hole tool, the concentric hole tool, and use 1.625 as my hole. So I'll grab my hole tool. I'm going to select the concentric reference point, which is just going to be the surface, and then my concentric reference will be the outside circle, and then I'll go ahead and put in the 1.625 as the size of the hole and hit OK. Now that I've got that set up, I can actually go ahead and work with the two side holes, my two mounting holes. So I'll run back and take a look, and they are 9/16. So I'll go ahead and grab my hole tool again and grab my concentric reference and just select the face, and then grab my concentric reference as the outside arc, if it's going to let me. I better change that to be 9/16 first. There's 9/16. And then I should be able to get my concentric reference here. Yeah, there we go. Now that will be set up and I can apply. And I'll do that again on this side with a concentric reference again. And that's set up and hit apply. So now that the holes are taken care of and it's all roughed out, I'm ready now to do a tangent hole through the outside surface point. Okay, in order to get this 1/4 inch drilled hole through the side of this rounded boss feature, we're going to go back to Inventor, and we're going to need to get a work plane that is going to be tangent to the outside of this part that would then be parallel to the center line of the part. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. In order to get a sketch on that, to do some geometry, we need to work with our work planes. Now, when I pull down my work plane feature, there's probably 5 different ways I could think to do this. The way that I'm going to walk you through today is going to be down here. It's going to be called tangent to surface through a point. So in order to get a tangent work plane to a surface through a point, we need a point. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a 2D sketch, and I'm going to place it on this face. From that point, I'm going to now just grab my line tool, and I'm going to draw a line from the center out to the outside edge. And what that does is it creates a point at the end of this line that I can utilize to then make a tangent plane to a surface using that point. So once I have this line and that point out here on the edge, I'm going to grab my planes, pull them down, and I'm going to then select tangent to surface through the point. And I want to select this surface first. It doesn't really matter where you click on the surface. I'm going to click on that rounded surface. And then the second piece of information it needs is that point. And when I mouse over that point at the end of the line and then select it, I now have a small work plane at the edge of my surface that's tangent. You can see it as I turn this around. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to then place a 2D sketch, a new 2D sketch, on that work plane. And to do so, you have to mouse over the edge of the work plane, wait till it actually highlights, and then select the work plane. Now that you have a 2D sketch on the work plane, you can go ahead and position where this hole will be located. In this dimension, it's sort of hiding in this dark area. It's a 1/2 inch down. The center of this 1/4 inch drilled hole is a 1/2 inch down. So I'm going to go back to Inventor, grab my line tool, and I'm going to find this top edge, select it, and I'm drawing a line down a 1/2 inch, and then I can finish the sketch. All I needed was that geometry. I can now grab my hole tool, and I can now select the end of that line, making sure that my placement is set up from sketch, not concentric, not linear, but from sketch. Once I have that, I can change the diameter, so it's a 1/4 inch, and I do not want it to go through all. Okay, so this is where I'm going to change the termination. The depth of this is going to have distance, and it's only going to go in far enough to get through the material. So I can leave this right now that my depth is 1 inch, that's fine, and then I hit OK. I now have a hole that is going to run through just one side of my piece here, just one side of my boss. Okay? And the next step is going to be fillets. All right, last thing you do to finish the part is add fillets. All of the fillets on the part are going to be an 1/8 inch, 0.125 in radius. So I'm going to then select my fillet tool, make sure I've got 0.125 as my radius, and then I can start working around my part, selecting the edges that are going to require fillets. So as I do this, I can do this all in one operation. There are my fillets. I can hit apply. Go back and just take a look at the part, see if I've got all my fillets around here, this edge, and that looks good. So there's the part. I can now go ahead and save this part to its name, bearing, and part is now complete. Move on to the next step to lay this out.